Great. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for coming here. And my name is Ayman Tarabishy, and I am the Executive Director for the International Council for Small Business. I'm also delighted to have with me here and at the table three distinguished members, and I'll introduce them. The first is His Excellency Mariano, the National Secretary for Entrepreneurs and Small Medium Enterprises from the Argentina Republic. Second is Dr. Winslow Sargeant, Senior Vice President of ICSB for Partnerships and former Chief Counsel of Advocacy for the Small Business Administration. And finally, Ambassador Martín, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Argentina at the United Nations. I want to thank you all for coming again. A little bit of why we're here and the context, and then I'll ask my distinguished guests to give brief remarks. The International Council for Small Business was founded in 1955. We're the oldest and largest nonprofit organization promoting small businesses, entrepreneurs, and micro businesses worldwide. We're in over 80 countries, and we have over 10,000 members. Since 1955 up till today, we've been focusing and promoting entrepreneurship, small business, and many different facets, including research, education, policy advocacy, and practice. And we are delighted and honored to be here today at the United Nations to recognize an important day, which is the passage of the International Day for Micro and Small and Medium Enterprises. This has been done with the support and leadership of the Republic of Argentina in passing the resolution at the UN General Council. But before we talk a little bit about this, what we want to focus on now is the status and the state, in particular, of micro and small businesses worldwide. And I would like to ask Dr. Winslow Sargeant to give some brief remarks about this, and then we can continue.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tarabishy. 600 million jobs. 600 million jobs. That is what the World Bank estimates that will be needed in the next 15 years just to sustain the current workforce that we will have. That is a huge number that we must address. We understand that if you do not have a livelihood, that could lead to instability. And that's why we believe that the recognition of micro, small, and medium enterprises will play such a key role going forward. Micro, small, and medium enterprises contribute significantly to product innovation in the marketplace, as well as up to 2/3 of all net new jobs in the workforce. We need to celebrate their contribution, because for us to go into the fourth industrial age, where we're seeing a huge shift based upon technology, based upon a surging of youth in various countries, how do we address that, the rising population and the decreasing number of jobs? MSMEs can fill that gap. We need to empower the entrepreneur. We need to make sure that he or she understands their role. We need to make sure that those who are in the informal economy are brought towards the formal economy so that they can contribute to economic growth. We believe that this MSME Day on June 27th is a watershed mark, because for the first time we're going to align MSME with sustainable development goals. We know that 2030 is a key date for the UN and for the world, and how will we reach those 17 goals unless we harness the power of MSMEs, and so that's why we're here.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Winslow. Last June, ICSB held their World Conference here, and part of the World Conference, we requested for the United Nations to consider creating an international name day to recognize the importance of entrepreneurs, small and micro businesses worldwide. We are honored and delighted and excited that the Republic of Argentina listened to our request and took the leadership in creating such an international day. And I would like to introduce Ambassador Martín to talk a little bit about the International Name Day and the fantastic work you all have done.
Thank you, Ayman, and thank you, all of you, for coming to this press meeting. And As Ayman said, the idea of establishing the micro, small and medium-sized enterprises day began last year during the 61st ICSB Annual World Conference, and Argentina took the challenge to organize and to start negotiating this resolution, the 71/279, that promotes this day to commemorate the small and medium-sized enterprises. And as it was said, next June 27, we are going to have some conferences, seminars in Buenos Aires, trying to commemorate this day and try to put conscience that it's very important to have this day and the small, medium, and size enterprises together for the implementation of the Agenda 2030. Thank you, Ayman.
Thank you. The ICSB World Conference will happen on MSME Day on June 27th, and the first country that will host the name day, the International Name Day, is Argentina. And we are delighted to have National Secretary Mariano here to talk about Argentina, what they are doing in Argentina, some of the developments and initiatives that they're doing, and also talk about the importance of SMEs.
Well, thank you very much to you for coming. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Ambassador Martín, for the work and the UN for the approval. We think that one of the best ways to promote the 2030 agenda is to foster entrepreneurship and SMEs. That's why for us it's so important, of course, to have a name day, but that is just the beginning, because there's so much to do in promoting entrepreneurship and SMEs in every country, but also in international cooperation. SMEs were usually not mentioned, even in the international treaties. As sadly, we have a say in Argentina that says that SMEs are in the mouth of everyone, but in the hands of nobody. And I think that's an international sad reality. That's why it's so important to take real and concrete steps on helping SMEs, because so far the agenda regarding SMEs was to take care of SMEs, and that's not enough. If we want to achieve the goals of 2030, we need SMEs to be the main characters of this challenge, of this adventure, because SMEs drive innovation. SMEs are driving also gender equality and the development of the economic empowerment of women. SMEs and entrepreneurs are fostering social impact innovation and different initiatives. That's why the goal is, or we think, as we say in Argentina, our first goal from government is zero poverty. Of course, it's a bold objective, but we think that the best way to achieve that is to have more and better SMEs. That's why we need to work every country in make easier for SMEs to develop their business. There's so much to do, especially regarding bureaucracy and regulation and taxes, which are not prepared for SMEs, but only for big companies. That's why we have approved last year the SME law, but also to drive new SMEs, new companies. In Argentina, we estimate that we need 200K, 300K more SMEs to create those jobs that we need, especially for young people. And for that, we need to make easier the way in which new companies could be created. And there's also, again, bureaucracy and the lack of finance and other things. So we think that the entrepreneurship law that we have just approved in our country would also help in that way. And we are sharing this experience with other countries, and we are all in the same page. The challenge regarding works, as you mentioned it, automatization of jobs, is going to be massive. And if it was important to support SMEs and entrepreneurship in the past, it's more important than ever, because in the next 10, 15 years, it's going to be decided where we are going. We were talking with Ambassador Martín that 2030 is right now, but these next 10, 15 years are going to be so important because technology is amazing, but if we manage in a bad way, it's going to be worse than we are. More inequality, more poverty, especially more young unemployment. But if we manage that technological change in a good way, we will be able to solve these 2030 problems. So thank you very much for being here, and we are, I don't know, open to questions, I think.
ICSB every year stresses the importance of entrepreneurship. But for the last 3 years, ICSB has been stressing a very important concept that we promote around the world. And the concept is humane entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, just for entrepreneurship's sake, is not enough. But entrepreneurship in a form of humane entrepreneurship, allowing both the human beings to thrive and companies to excel. That balance of both is critical. I think the SDGs of the United Nations is a key driver of this, but at the end, what we all need to think about is the balance between humanity and entrepreneurship, and what we call humane entrepreneurship. We'd like now to open it up for questions or comments. Thank you very much. And please identify yourself from the press, and then we'll take other questions. Yes, press. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
My name is Sato from Japanese NHK. Thank you for briefing. My question is about the micro and small business in Argentina, especially in South America. I'm in belonging to the broadcaster, so I want to know a little bit more specific example, if you can, to show us some successful the example in the Argentina, or what is the small business or small micro entrepreneur in Argentina is important in terms of the pushing forward the whole South American the business. Thank you.
Okay. Well, in Argentina we have a population of around 40 million people, working population 20 million, and we only have 6 million registered jobs in the private sector. Okay. We have around 4.5 non-registered workers, 1.5 million unemployed, and the rest is a universe that we call the social and popular economy, which are people that are not considered themselves as unemployed, but they live in, they are micro-entrepreneurs, informal, I would say, or people living from social plans. So, for the last 5 years, I would say there was no job creation in the private sector. The job creation was in the public sector. Okay. So if we need to create jobs for those millions of people, the only way where we can do that is by supporting the existing SMEs, which are around 850K, to help them to grow, working on competitiveness and productivity, but also to create new ones. We need at least 1 million SMEs in Argentina, because those jobs are not going to be created by the government, public jobs. In fact, there are many people saying that we need to reduce the government by millions, and not also the big companies. You know that we won the elections a year and a half. Most of big companies from the world are coming to Argentina. We are hot now, and there were announcements of around $40 billion of investments. And in direct jobs, it was 30,000, 35,000. So it's nothing compared with what we need. The volume of jobs are going to be created by SMEs. So we are not doing this because it's trendy, but because it's the only way where we can have a development which is sustainable. Okay. So we are working on competitiveness and productivity of the current SMEs, reducing taxes, simplifying bureaucracy, working on financing, and also in the creation of new companies with the entrepreneurship law, which is a startup innovation initiative with a new kind of corporation, which is a simplified version of a company, and also a massive finance program training. We have trained 50,000 people in the first year, entrepreneurs, developing entrepreneurship clubs all over the country, but also especially, I would say, working with the state governments and local governments to develop local capabilities. It cannot be an initiative only from federal government, because that's not sustainable also. I don't know if that answers your question. Huh?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Matthew Lee, Inner City Press. I'm sorry if you addressed this. I took about 20 minutes to get in here. You've got so many small business people in the metal detector line. But I wanted to ask about lending to small business. Here in the U.S., there's a law called the Community Reinvestment Act, which says that banks have to lend to their whole community, including small businesses, in exchange for being insured by the government for bailouts or deposit insurance. So how prevalent do you think this is? Is it something, I don't know if it's something that your group works on in terms of access to credit for businesses, because if they can't get loans, then they can't do anything. What's the state of either the law or of encouraging banks in Argentina to lend to small business, and does the wider organization that's meeting here today work on the issue of access to credit by businesses? Thanks.
If you
Why
want
don't you take that, and then we'll give another example.
It's very important what you mentioned it. In fact, it's going to be one of the issues that we would talk in Argentina on the seminar and in some side events also. To give you an example, in Argentina, the financing system is very small, less than 15 points of GDP, compared with, I don't know, Chile, which is almost 100, or the US, that is 200, I would say. And from that, what is for SMEs is very small. And the percentage of SMEs accessing to banks is less than 30%. That is very common in all the region. Okay? So financing for SMEs, it's a key driver of that. And for that, you need to work on many things. Regulations, of course. Usually banks, commercial banks, are not prepared to lend money to SMEs unless they have a big assurance or the government guaranteeing that. So guarantees are very important, regulations, but also working with SMEs on their statements. Usually the statements are not in the way that banks need the statements to be. So in our case, we are working in all these aspects, and now we are working. We would be moving with the National Plan of Digitalization of SMEs, which of course includes the management of information for them to be in a better way with their statements. Also, we have created the SME registry with the law. We have more than 240,000 SMEs registered, which is a record in our country. And with them, we are now having an agreement with the central bank and with the tax agency for this digital ID to be able to upload statements, bylaws, and all the information. So the process of sending information to the banks or the guarantee companies is going to be easier with just one click. And then, of course, you can work on scoring systems and different risk analysis. But in my personal opinion, the answer for this is not commercial banks. For us, it's going to take decades to work on that. So we need to work on technology, peer-to-peer lending, crowdfunding, and other initiatives, which also implies to change regulations and change the status quo. And also all the fintech startups are going to help a lot with that. And I think that's the only way where we can really work on finance for SMEs. Otherwise, the agenda is going to be as always, which is just taking care of SMEs and not helping them grow.
And just to add to this, and ICSB has been advocating through its membership and affiliates worldwide to start looking into creating similar to the Small Business Administration, but there's different forms of them in different countries. But more importantly, as well as we've been advocating, is creating ministerial positions representing small businesses worldwide. Not all countries have ministers representing small businesses, and that's something at a global level should be important. And they should all meet quite often, right, and talk and discuss and share knowledge and share best practices. So that's something that ICSB has been advocating to its different countries to start considering, governments to start considering these type of positions. Yes, please identify yourself.
Alex Corneos, New Egypt TV. For the general audience not familiar with your program, can you give a little bit of definition to how you define the terms micro, small, and medium-sized businesses?
Me?
It depends on what country and what region of the world it is. So why don't we start with Latin America, and then we can...
No, I mean, it's not. There's not a uniform definition worldwide. In fact, it's part of the discussion in the different G20, in the World Trade Organization here, with what's an SME. In Argentina, we used to have the number of employees. Now it's not that. We have divided in revenues and different sectors. It's not a perfect system, and we have, of course, discussions about that. We are thinking of maybe having a more variables included, but for that you need data. And usually in most of our countries, the SME world is inexistent, or there is no data or very few data. So that's why having a registry, a digital registry of SMEs is so important. It's not easy for SMEs to be registered because usually these kind of initiatives are a failure. You just register 10K. So we have included this in the SME law, which has a very strong tax incentive for SMEs. And the only way where you can have the exemption is by registering. That's why we have so much SMEs. Of course, we want all of them to be. Once you have more data, you can work with combining employees, regions, and also their revenues. But then, of course, there are more theoretical or conceptual definitions of. In fact, many people say, why you just define which are the big companies and then all the rest are SMEs? It could be a possibility.
Okay, well,
I guess that I would add, too, with regard to MSMEs in terms of the scale, in terms of the size, it varies, as you said, by country or by region. But what we do know that just broadly defined, most businesses would, in terms of MSMEs, in terms of the percentage, you're looking at about 90+% of all businesses would be captured under that umbrella. And that's a huge number of businesses, and so we want to make sure that those businesses have their due, because they do contribute to some extent, half of all the GDP in various countries. They do, in terms of innovation, they bring new products to the table, bring new solutions, and they're involved in communities throughout. They're decentralized, and the decentralization is key because not everyone will be in an urban environment. So we want to make sure that we have support or have an opportunity for growth for where you are, so that you're not dislocating people just to move to larger cities. And so that's one of the reasons why we want to address what makes up an MSMEs, but also make sure that they have enough funding so that they can not only start but scale, because scaling is also a big concern that we have as well.
I just heard that it sounds like there's several definitions of the other 99% in the world.
Yeah. All right, and I think the time is off now. What I'd like to do is welcome you all at 3 o'clock to the ECOSOC room, in which we will have a full afternoon discussing the definitions of what is MSMEs, the different trends, the different issues, and also opportunities that are prevalent for MSMEs worldwide. And we'll talk about the significance of the day. So we have a full program at the ECOSOC this afternoon. It'll also be webcasted. And again, on behalf of ICSB, we would like to thank Argentina for taking the lead on the International Name Day, and Mariano for being here. And thank you all, and see you soon.
I'm sorry, you're all invited to the reception at 6 here in the 4th floor. So we will have some tango and of course, Malbec from Argentina.
I did not know that was in the press release, but okay.
Thank you.